Good morning, everyone. This is Alan Hickenbottom with Lean Energy US. Joining me today from Lean will be Allison, will be helping with the questions. And welcome to today's session, Getting to 100% Clean Energy in 2019. Before we start, some housekeeping items. Today's session will be about 45 minutes with time for questions. And you'll submit your questions to the question box on the right side of your screen, and we'll get to as many questions as we can. Links for the slides and the recorded session will be sent out after the presentation. Before we begin today's presentation, I wanted to share a little information on the Local Energy Aggregation Network, or Lean Energy US. We're a national nonprofit dedicated to the expansion of clean energy CCAs around the country. And as you can see from the map, CCA is authorized in about 8 states right now. And we do work in those states, as well as at some level, the other 9 that are listed there, where CCA is active in either policy or legislative activity there. Core functions including outreach, CCA formation and development, regulatory legislative affairs, and new market development. And now to today's presentation. Our presenter is Natasha Keefer, the Director of Power Planning and Procurement for the Clean Power Alliance, California's new locally operated electricity provider for 31 communities and approximately 1 million eligible customers across Los Angeles and Ventura County. Her experience includes sustainable infrastructure development, energy finance, utility planning, and procurement, and launching new enterprises. Natasha comes to Clean Power Alliance from the Renewable Resources Group, an impact investment firm where she was the Vice President of Energy and Water Development, leading infrastructure project development and investment activities in the Western US, South America, and Australia. Before joining RRG, Natasha was Director of Project Development for Edison Water Resources, where she was responsible for developing local sustainable water supply projects in the city of Los Angeles and other Southern California communities. Prior to that, she served as Manager of Business Development and Asset Management for Berkshire Hathaway Energy Renewables, supporting the development of $6 billion in solar generation assets. She started her career at Southern California Edison, gaining experience in power portfolio management, resource planning, market analysis, regulatory engagement, and strategic initiatives. She has an MBA from Columbia Business School and her bachelor's from the University of Southern California. With that, I'll turn it over to Natasha. Welcome, Natasha.
Hi, Alan. Thank you. So I will be presenting, first I'll go over a quick overview of CCAs and the CCA movement in California. I'll talk a little bit more about who Clean Power Alliance is and the communities that we serve. Talk a little bit about the value that we bring to our member agencies and why those agencies decided to join. I'll talk about the rate options that we offer our customers, and then how those rate options translate into our renewable energy procurement activities that help support those customer selections. And then we'll wrap things up and leave some time for Q&A. So we can move on to the next slide. So what is community choice aggregation? So Assembly Bill 117 was passed in California to establish community choice aggregation, CCA, the CCA model. And really that model allows for communities to break off from the investor-owned utilities and give them control over their energy resources. So those communities can band together and purchase energy on behalf of their communities. And this is generally structured either through a joint powers authority, which is how Clean Power Alliance is structured, or it can be through an enterprise fund of an existing municipality, so a single jurisdiction enterprise fund. So in California, we currently have 19 CCAs in operation, serving over 3.8 million customer accounts and over 43,000 gigawatt hours of annual load. And that is growing exponentially, which I'll talk a little bit more about. But the state of California estimates that by the middle of the next decade, more than 80% of IOU customers will receive their power from non-IOU providers. So this is a robust movement that we're seeing in California to move to the CCA model. Next slide. So this may be a little bit hard to read, but Cal CCA has this great graphic showing all of the CCAs in California, those that are currently serving customers and those are that are planning to go CCA. The first CCA in California was established in 2010 with Marine Clean Energy, MCE. And then we saw over the next few years between 2014 to 2017, we had additional CCAs spring up, mostly focused in Northern California. Sonoma Clean Power came on in 2014. And then we saw sort of an explosion of CCAs last year. 11 new CCAs launched, including Clean Power Alliance. And you're seeing these CCAs, not just in Northern California, but really across the state. You see a lot of growth in along the coastal communities and the major load pockets across the state. Next slide. So talking a little bit more about Clean Power Alliance and who we are. So we are a joint powers authority made up of 31 public agencies across LA and Ventura counties. So we serve SoCal Edison customers. So we're not eligible to serve LADWP or other municipal load in those counties. We also have another community joining in 2020, which will be the community of Westlake Village. That will happen in mid-2020. And once we are fully enrolled, we'll be serving over 1 million customer accounts with about 13,000 gigawatt hours of annual load. So Clean Power Alliance in the context of California CCAs were a little special for a few reasons. The first is that, just our sheer size, we will be the largest CCA in California once we're fully enrolled. We're also special because we are a Southern California CCA. So again, a lot of the proliferation of CCAs that we've seen have been in Northern California. And over the last few years, the movement in Southern California has grown a lot. And we are unique because we have so many different communities. We really serve a diverse population. So if you, next slide. So here's a list of all of the communities that we serve. And our board of directors is made up of 31 elected officials from each of these communities. So every community has a seat on the seat at the table. And really what is so interesting about Clean Power Alliance is just the sheer diversity of the communities that we serve. So we have, coastal and inland communities. We have a large residential load, but also a large commercial and industrial load. We serve communities that are, politically conservative and very politically liberal, and also cities that are quite affluent and other cities that are more disadvantaged. So this is really important to keep in context because it's important for us as an agency to balance all of our stakeholder needs and provide different options to customers who may need different things. Next slide. So this is just a quick overview of our evolution. So Clean Power Alliance launched service to customers in 2018, and we have been working through a phased enrollment. So we launched service to a select number of customers in February of 2018, about 2,000 municipal accounts. In June of 2018, we brought on another 35,000 commercial and industrial customers in a few select communities in our service territory. And then 2019 has been really a hallmark year for Clean Power Alliance. In February, we successfully launched service to all of our residential customers. And then this month, so we're about halfway through the month, so halfway through our last enrollment period, but we'll be expanding service to all of our remaining non-residential customers. So by the end of this month, we'll be fully enrolled and serving over 1 million customer accounts. Okay, next slide. So quick overview on how the CCA model works. So our customers are still SoCal Edison customers. So the IOU and CPA, we share customers. When a customer gets a bill for their electricity, there's 2 charges on that bill. The first is the electricity that they buy, so their actual usage. And then the second is the delivery of that electricity to their home or business. So previously, these SCE customers were getting service from SCE for both of those charges. Now that Clean Power Alliance, has launched, CPA is responsible for that usage portion, so the actual usage, the electricity that the customer uses, and then SCE still maintains the transmission and distribution business, so they are charging customers for delivery of that electricity to their home or business. So customer still gets 1 bill from SCE that includes the CPA charges on that bill. And again, we work very, very collaboratively with SoCal Edison, in contact every day to make sure that the customer really receives a seamless experience, and that, we coordinate on billing activities, on communication activities, and so that's really a shared customer that both agencies or both organizations are really focused on. Providing a good customer experience. Okay, next slide. So how does this CCA model work in California? So something that's a really important feature of California CCA program is that it is an automatic opt-in. So once a customer is eligible to switch service, so that's again dependent on their jurisdiction, whether their community has joined the CCA. But if that customer is eligible, in order to switch service, the customer has to do nothing. So it's an automatic opt-in. And then once the customer switches service, they have the choice to either opt up, opt down, so opt to a different rate structure if they would like to do so, or they can opt out and go back to service with the investor-owned utility. And then, of course, we are required to provide notification to the customer so this doesn't happen out of the blue. The customer receives 2 notices before becoming enrolled, and then 2 additional notifications after the customer is enrolled, so they're aware of the change and aware of their options. Next slide. So why are communities, interested in the CCA model and switching to Clean Power Alliance? So again, because our communities, we have a really diverse group of communities, they may have different reasons for going CCA. So the first is, this idea of stable competitive rates. So before CCAs came into play, the investor-owned utilities really were a monopoly in California, and customers didn't really have a choice about who their provider was or the rate structure that they wanted to choose. So this idea of having accountability to the community, again, our board of directors is made up of elected officials from those communities. They are very much accountable to their constituents. And so it's important for Clean Power Alliance to, maintain a good relationship with our customers and also provide stability and competitive rates, not just, when we enroll them initially, but over the long term. The second big driver of CCAs is higher renewable content. So we do have a mandate to provide a higher percentage of renewables and lower GHG emissions than SCE. So for those communities that are that have environmental goals that they want to go above and beyond the state mandate and what the investor-owned utilities have planned, this is an opportunity for them to achieve those environmental targets. And then the third is local management and control. So again, as a Joint Powers Authority, we represent our communities and really provide communities a way to have local control over their energy resources and really meet the needs of local communities in a way that the investor-owned utilities just can't, because they don't have that relationship with those communities. Okay, next slide. So this is an overview of the different rate options that we provide our customers. So the three rate options is lean power, which is a 36% renewable energy content. And this is offered to customers at a discount to the SCE base rate. So the discount is a 1 to 2% discount from their bill to achieve about equivalent renewable energy content as the IOU. The second option is the clean power option, which is a 50% renewable energy content product. So it's more renewables at about the same price as what SCE base rate. So it's a parity rate to SCE. And then the third is 100% green power option, which is 100% renewable energy content. And that's priced at a premium, about 7 to 9% bill premium to SCE's base rate in order to account for the additional cost of that renewable energy. And so really having these three options is really critical to serving our communities, because there is an important trade-off between affordability and environmental benefits, and we want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our customers. So next slide. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how communities make their default tier selection. So customers enroll into service at either the 36%, 50%, or 100% renewable energy default based on what their city or community decides to opt in at. So CPAs communities made default selections for their customers to opt in at lean, clean, or 100% green. And we see that defaults are important because there's a lot of stickiness around the default rates. So in other words, once a customer gets defaulted into a particular rate class, we see them sticking with that rate selection rather than opting up, opting down, or opting out. Although that's certainly an option to our customers if they would like to do so. So we're seeing, of the community selections, about 32% are opting in at 100% green, 42% at 50% clean, and 26 at 36% lean. So this is based on the number of communities and what those communities have selected. If we look at it based on a percentage of load, we see about 30% of our load is opted in at 100% green. About 55% of our load is at that 50% clean, and 15% of the load is at the 36% lean option. So this is pretty amazing that we've had so many of our communities decide to default in at the 100% green rate, even though it means a bill increase or rate increase for their customers. But they have chosen to do so because they want to achieve that environmental target. I'll also note here that we have a feature for our 100% green communities. So those 100% green communities decided that in order to keep our most vulnerable customers whole on this additional cost of going green, those low-income customers would receive the benefit of 100% green power at no additional cost to SCE's base rate. So those communities have in fact chosen to subsidize their low-income customers so that those low-income customers would have the benefit of going 100% green along with their communities without having you know, a additional financial burden. So far, we've seen a really, really fantastic outcome with our customers. So, you know, overall CCAs will see opt-out rates in the range of around 3 to 8%. In California, it's been less than 5%. So far, the opt-out rate that CPA has seen is in the 3.5% range, which is, you know, on the low end of that range. And so we haven't seen, you know, we haven't seen massive opt-outs. We haven't seen, you know, big swings and moving up and down. Customers are basically sticking with, for the most part, sticking with their default rates. We've also attempted to recognize customers for going 100% green. So this month, we launched our Green Leader program, which is a recognition program for green businesses. So for those businesses that go 100% green, we offer them co-promotion, networking events, and assistance with developing their GHG reduction metrics. So again, this is just another way to say thank you to those customers that have gone 100% green and really recognizing them for that environmental commitment. So how does this rate structure translate into impact? Let's go to the next slide. So this is a chart showing all of the CCAs and what their minimum renewable energy content is. So again, this isn't the average renewable energy content of their portfolio. This is just the bare minimum renewable energy content that they're providing through their rate selections. So we see across the board that a lot of the CCAs have similar 100% renewable rate options and rates, renewable energy content rates in between. But across the board, the minimum RPS that we're seeing across the CCAs are at the California minimum RPS, 31%, or far exceeding that. So most CCAs are already above the California mandated RPS. And to me, this really demonstrates how CCAs can achieve fast decarbonization on a really large scale through, you know, through the demand of their customers for this higher renewable energy content. Next slide. So this is, you know, this rate selection is translating into real impact from a renewable energy development perspective. Again, I took this graphic from the Cal CCA website, but it shows, you know, where all of the new new generation capacity that CCAs have contracted across the state. So they've contracted for more than 2,000 megawatts of new clean energy capacity through long-term PPAs. And what we're seeing is that CCAs are going to play a really critical role in achieving the state's environmental goals, because Between now and 2030, the CCAs are planning to procure over 10,000 megawatts of new renewable resources, which is about 90% of the expected new renewable procurement statewide. And Clean Power Alliance is definitely involved in that effort. So we ran our first solicitation for long-term renewable energy contracts in October of 2018. We're currently wrapping up negotiation with for those PPAs now. And the goal of that initial solicitation was to procure 400 to 600 megawatts of new steel in the ground, new in-state renewable energy projects. This is, that's the first bite at the apple. We'll be doing additional solicitations for renewable energy this year in the fall of 2019. We'll be running another solicitation in 2020 and likely, on an ongoing basis for many years to come as we transition to contracting with these long-term new renewable energy projects. And these contracts are really important for Clean Power Alliance and achieving our mission because these resources allow us to meet our environmental goals, meet the demands of our customers who want to see these clean energy resources in their portfolio, and do that in a cost-effective way so that over the long term we can maintain affordable, stable rates for our customers. So with that, I will wrap it up. We can go to the next slide. Here's our contact information, and happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Natasha. And I think Allison may have a question or two, but I had a question I wanted to ask is and I know you and I have talked about this, but I'd really like to delve in a little bit for the audience on the actual content of the 100% green, because a lot of times we hear about where the energy may come from. And for the energy nerds out there, is it an unbundled REC or a bundled REC, which means that the power attributes and the energy itself arrives there. So I think that's an important thing to dive into for the Clean Power Alliance and other California CCAs of what the actual energy content looks like.
Sure. So so as a new agency, most of the procurement that we've done to date has been short-term renewable energy credits. And again, we are transitioning to more long-term energy contracts as we evolve and have the opportunity to procure those resources. In 2018, about 40% of our procurement was from wind resources and about 60% solar. And of that, about half was in-state and half was out-of-state. We contract with resources that are located in-state or out-of-state. We procure both PCC1 and PCC2 renewable energy credits, but Clean Power Alliance, as a policy matter, we do not procure unbundled or bucket 3 RECs.
And so could you go into a little bit more, maybe just that classification of renewable energy in California that maybe others in other states could relate to what they have?
Sure. So you mean the definition of the PCC1 versus PCC2?
Yeah. It's so easy for all of us to fall into our acronym. So, and I'm guilty as anyone.
Yeah, so there's the difference between a bundled renewable credit versus unbundled. So PCC1 and PCC2 are both bundled renewable energy credits, and bucket 3 means unbundled. So bundled means that you're procuring the renewable energy credit and the generation from that facility at the same time. So a PCC1 REC may look like a solar project in Southern California, and we are buying the renewable energy credit and the generation from that facility at the same time. The typical PCC1. PCC2 is generally for out-of-state resources, but those out-of-state resources are required to schedule their renewable energy in to California. So again, we're buying the renewable energy credit and the generation and scheduling those into California so that we make sure that the energy that we're buying is actually delivered in state.
Right. And I think it might be interesting as well, because I'm not sure every state. I know Oregon, where I'm from, we currently don't have any low-income rate structures here. I know we're working on that, but I think that was another point that I find so helpful with CCA is that ability to weave in multiple value streams when a board looks at doing this. So I think it might be helpful for some if you could go into a little bit about California's low-income rate structure and then how that did translate into the ability to offer them 100% renewable.
Right. So the California offers rate discounts to the care, FARA, and medical baseline customers. So those are customers that have certain low income thresholds that they can meet in order to receive a pretty significant discount on their bill. So those customers we identify in our community. So again, for the 100% renewable communities, we identify who those care, FARA, medical baseline customers are, and then through our billing, we provide them a generation rate that's comparable to the SCE, existing rate that they would be receiving, otherwise. So we're offering them the 100% renewable energy product. We're buying 100% renewable energy on their behalf, but they're able to receive it at a parity rate. And by doing that, the remaining 100% green customers in that community actually pick up the cost of that discount to those customers.
Great. I had one question above on, so I guess maybe this is a semantic question, but of the plans, these are basically, while we talk about renewables, these are really carbon neutral. The portions of those bills are in fact carbon neutral, as we would hope, on the renewable portions of those bills. Is that correct?
Carbon neutral, meaning that there's no emissions associated with the renewable energy content?
Yes, I think that's what. Yeah, I think that's what the question question was trying to get at.
Yeah. So, for example, the 100% green rate would have a zero emissions rate associated with that rate option because it's being served by 100% renewable energy. The 36% lean option would be 36% renewable, and the remainder would be system power, so a blended emissions rate that would be higher than zero.
Okay. Maybe turn it over for Allison real quick. Allison, what other questions have you seen?
Yeah, we have one here. Does SCE charge clean power for the service in the CCA charge on a single bill? If so, how much?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm having some feedback on the audio. Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Alan, maybe try muting your line.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I am muting at this end, so I'm sorry, not sure where that's coming from.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. So we'll try to work through it. Does Southern California Edison charge Clean Power Alliance for the service of putting the CPA charge on a single bill? If so, how much?
So we do. So CPA does pay a fee to SCE for the billing services. I don't, off the top of my head, know what that is. But that's the cost that we incur as part of our operating expenses.
Okay. Another question, will member jurisdictions be able to change their default selection in the future?
Yes. So we haven't quite established our policy around how cities can move up or down for their default selections. I anticipate that would be something that happens during our annual rate setting process. But yes, the idea is that cities, if they wanted to, if they're currently at 36% lean and wanted to move up to, the 50% clean, that they would have the ability to do so. And we also, in the future may change or modify these rate products. So rather than having 36%, 50%, and 100%, we may offer different types of renewable energy content or other types of products in the future. But these are the rate products that we're offering as part of our launch.
Great, thanks. Here comes another question for you. As you contract for power, what is the role for encouraging local power generation for local jobs, resilience, et cetera?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for the last solicitation that we ran, we include not only price, but a number of other qualitative factors in our project selection. So we look at the price, the value that the energy would bring to our portfolio. We look at development risk, so how far along the project is in its development. We look at environmental stewardship, so is the project located in an area that has already been designated for renewable energy development, or is it in an avoidance area where it may be detrimental to habitat? So environmental stewardship is a really critical one. Workforce development, so is the project going to offer workforce development opportunities? Has it secured a project labor agreement, prevailing wage, targeted hires? We also look at whether the project is located within a disadvantaged community and providing benefits, like economic benefits to that disadvantaged community. And then we also look at whether the project is located within our service territory. So we take into account all of those factors when we select projects to contract with. And I'll also add that Clean Power Alliance is just launching its local program strategic planning process. So over the next probably 6 months, we're evaluating all of the customer programs and local programs that Clean Power Alliance can invest in, because of course one of the important parts of our mission is to provide benefits to our member agencies and our communities. And so we're going through a strategic planning process now to figure out what are all of the programs available, and which ones would be the best investment for Clean Power Alliance that we could deploy in the short term and make a significant impact on our customers and our communities over the next 5 years. So we'll be going through that process through the remainder of 2019, and hopefully have more specific programs geared towards local programs, workforce development, benefits, and really driving value for our communities.
Okay, thank you. Question about PV panels on roofs. Can they participate in the CCA program?
Yes. So net energy meter, so NEM customers, net energy meter customers who were previously enrolled with SCE they are eligible for NEM benefits with Clean Power Alliance.
Great, thanks. All right, a few more questions. Has there been any pushback from communities that enrolled in 100% renewable?
Pushback from communities enrolled at 100% renewable? No, I mean, it's been fairly successful. So the communities that have chosen to go 100% renewable, I mean, they certainly have, the community has a lot of support for that effort, right? That's why their communities have chosen to go 100% green. We are seeing, from our opt-out rates, we're seeing some customers in those 100% communities opt down to a lower rate if they, are unable to afford the 100% green option or don't want the 100% green option. But for the most part, it's been quite successful, and we see, really positive feedback in those communities.
Okay. All right, here we go. Another question. Are you seeing the formation of any new municipal utilities in California, or is all the focus on CCAs?
Oh, I don't know.
All right, great. Are the projects
I'm not aware of a municipalization effort in California.
Okay, yeah, no, great. Are the projects you're procuring from Northern California charged to you at a higher transmission distribution rate due to the longer transport distance?
Yeah, so those, so we take those costs into account. So when we're valuing renewable energy projects and the pricing that they're offering us, we take into account things like, transmission costs and congestion costs. That's baked into our evaluation.
All right. Does the CCA procure storage or other grid balancing assets? How does the grid balancing work as a percentage renewable increases?
Yeah, so so in our last solicitation, we went out to procure renewable energy projects. So those are RPS eligible technologies like wind, solar, geothermal, etc. We also were looking for bids for renewable plus storage facilities, and we also got bids for standalone battery storage projects. So of the projects that we're currently in negotiations with, we have some standalone renewable, some renewable plus storage, and a standalone battery storage project that we're in negotiations with. We see storage as a really critical and valuable part of our, transition under SB 100 to 100% clean state of the world in California. Storage is a really important piece of that in order to integrate those intermittent resources. And so we are definitely looking to procure storage resources, not just in the solicitation, but in future ones.
Okay, great, thanks. We have a few more. Here we go, Natasha. Do jurisdictions within your group also have interest in doing local renewable projects? And if so, how does that work once in a CCA?
Okay, sorry, the first part of that I missed. The question was, is if we have a jurisdiction that wants to do a local renewable energy project, how does that fit into the CCA?
Yeah, exactly, like solar on the roof of the school or a government building, things like that.
Yeah, so we are definitely interested in moving those types of projects forward. Again, our local program strategic planning process is really going to drive how we evaluate and deploy those types of projects across our service territory.
Great. Hang on, I'm finding another question. Do you require union labor or project labor agreements for new power projects?
It's not a requirement, but it is workforce development is a factor that we use to evaluate projects for selection. So projects that have a 5-trade project labor agreement would be ranked high on workforce development versus a project that is not committed to using union labor or not committed to providing prevailing wage or targeted hires as part of its construction.
Great. I have one here about electric vehicle plans in the future, like other CCAs.
Yeah, so electrification is definitely a big priority for Clean Power Alliance. We see the move to both electrification of transportation and buildings as a really important objective, not only from a GHG reduction perspective, but also for reducing criteria pollutants and improving air quality, particularly in our disadvantaged communities. Transportation electrification is one of the things that we are evaluating as part of our local program's strategic planning process.
Great, thanks. And then our last question. In a nutshell, how are CCAs able to beat the IOUs on the rates they're charged for high renewable content? Where are they saving money?
So again, we are for the most part providing rates that are at parity to SCE. So again, for the 36% rate, we're at a slight discount to SCE. At the 50% rate, we're at parity, and for the 100% green rate, we are actually at a rate premium to SCE. And really, the objective is not to overpromise our customers that we're going to be providing these huge discounts to SCE over the long term, because that's not really a viable business model. But what we're trying to do is provide rate stability and competitive rates against SCE. And we can do that because as an organization, we don't have ratepayer, we don't pay shareholders, right? Our profits don't go back to shareholders. If we have any excess revenue left over, that excess revenue either goes into goes on our balance sheet to ensure that we have a strong financial position and reserves, which is important as a new organization. That excess revenue can go back directly to customers in the form of a rate discount or rate reduction. And then the third is making investments in the community. Okay, great. Thank you. That's all the questions. Great.
Great. Thank you, Allison.
Good question.
Yeah, thank you. Right. And thank you, Natasha. So again, sorry for the feedback. We tried to figure out what that was. I'm not sure we were successful at that. So very sorry about that. So stay tuned. We'll be sending out notices here in the coming future on upcoming webinars. We'll be doing one on EVs per the question asked earlier around California. and also are thinking about one that really gets at this ability to weave in multiple value streams around this public model that sits here. So I want to thank you again for joining us. And for all those who signed up, you will be receiving links for the slides and the recording. And thanks again, and we hope to hear you on the or see you on the next webinar. With that, we will conclude.